Welcome to Envisioned Broadcasting, the station designed to encourage, equip, and empower you for growth and success. Presents Women Emerge with Mellisa Lambert, a show that shines a light on spiritual growth, health, purpose, and financial education. It's time to emerge and begin to live out your dreams, walk into your destiny, while making a difference in the lives of many.
Welcome to Women Emerge with Dr. Mellisa Lambert. I am your host, and it's always an honor and a privilege to come before you another Thursday. Happy Thursday, everyone. I am excited because on today's episode, we have brought back Dr. Bertha White from Bertha Arise, and we're going to have a discussion because something great happened on this past Sunday, where we had the greatest opportunity to put together a panel. And on this panel, we had four amazing gentlemen that talked about love, talked about money, talked about truth, talked about communication from the man's perspective. And we're going to kind of just dive into this conversation so we can kind of, get through the thoughts and process that was that these gentlemen had. And I mean, they had some great points, and we want to kind of like literally dive into it. But I definitely want you to go to Women Emerge Network YouTube channel, watch it, put your comments, write some comments there so we can see and hear from you as well. So please welcome to the show the CEO and the visionary of Bertha Arise, Dr. Bertha White, H.C. Welcome to the show, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Miss Mellisa. I appreciate being here.
Awesome. So congratulations on your part 2 of Love, Money, Truth, and Communication, where we got the perspective of how a man perspective is when it comes to relationships. So I mean, when you really had an opportunity to share this with the panelists and let them know what we're going to do, what was their excitement? How did they receive the fact that we're going to be doing something in this sort?
Well, I hand chose these four men because what I know about them is that although they're very different, they also are complementary in a way. And I knew they were going to function well in explaining their position. I think they understood the assignment as I talked to them in preparation for this, that they would be there, they're comfortable with themselves, they're comfortable telling their story about relationships. My husband was there as I was hosting, he was there, and he was comfortable, expressing these things. So they were hand chosen, and that is Moses Jones Lewis, Darrell Dandridge, Dr. Anthony E. Jones, and Rodney White. Yeah, it was a great panel, where they were open and clear, sharing their wisdom, were very transparent, and left us with some messages, to move forward with. Number one, it is okay for a man in any place in his relationship to express themselves on these pillars of a relationship, and that is, love, money, truth, and communication. We clarified that the foundation is faith, number one, and then there are these pillars that we're talking about. So, it was fun to talk with the panelists. They were very authentic. The attendees were involved and engaged in the situation, in the conversation, freely giving their opinion. It was a wonderful event. I cannot wait for part 3.
I can't wait either. I think that it's going to have such an impact because of what we started. First, we started talking about it on the radio, then we brought it over to YouTube. And I feel like these gentlemen did a wonderful job. And you mentioned, as we began to talk about the foundation of all of this, the foundation is faith. The foundation is God, putting God first in the midst of all relationship and allowing him to give the guidance through it all. So I'm going to kind of take you backward to take you forward. After I wanted to ask you, what was your impression of the actual, once we were completed, once we were done, what was your feeling like, and what was your impression of everything that was said on that day?
It was what I envisioned it to be. I'm familiar with these gentlemen, and I know that they're open to having these types of conversations about themselves as individuals, about their relationships, how they function in their relationships, and is respectful of each other's opinion. And so it was what I thought it would be. It represented so many groups of men, not just the 4 panelists, but so many men, these 4, represented. And they were, I can say for my husband, and that's Rodney White, he was as authentic as he normally is. And he revealed parts of his experience when he was transitioning from the military to private sector after his retirement, and to reveal that, he felt real emotions and to identify those emotions. And it wasn't a matter of rather I understood it. It was, the fact that I would receive it. But that was to his wife. For him to, say that on our podcast was significant. It was an example, a symbol of it being okay for men to be in that position, a position of loss, and feel it and express it and not be embarrassed by it. But the truth is, a man has his position in the relationship, and it is challenged sometimes. And so for my husband to reveal that, it was what I thought it would be. And the other men I thought were, very authentic to their situation. As a matter of fact, that point was made by Dr. Anthony Jones that, all that was said still has to, has to be considered in an individual capacity. Some of the information that was given, men needed and women needed, and then other parts of the information, it was circumstantial. If this is your experience. I just make it a habit to do a post review of any panelists that I'm working with, and as many viewers as is willing to let me know what they thought. And in doing so, there was a review of the panelists. Now, what was very clear to myself and the people that I spoke with to review is that these men were different. They were different, but they complemented each other. We had someone there, I'm not sure I forget how far out Gen Z goes, if it's like to 40. We had someone, in that dynamic, newly married with children, and someone that was divorced, and some military experience that, all were contributing factors to their experience with love and their experience with, truth and communication and money. And what was interesting is there was I guess I would call it a redefining of love, money, truth, and communication. It was clear that communication comes first. And that was, that was very important, I think, for us to identify, because when we put love first, I think the men were saying, and we were saying collectively, you bring that back to dating. When you're starting or determining if you're starting a relationship, communication should be first, not love. And then how trust comes, it stems from communication, and then, then love, and then the money fits in where it fits in. I think that was important, a significant factor in our discussion as we redefined some of the order of these things, because faith was not initially mentioned.
No.
So we redefined the order of these things, and that it stemmed from a man's perspective, and that part I found very interesting. In my review, women were saying they loved it and they watched it with their boyfriend, they watched it with their husband, and so the outcome was was wonderful. But I know there are more people out there that need to hear this, more men that need to hear this, and more women that need to hear this. So I'm hoping that, your listeners will really take the time to review love, money, truth, and communication from a man's perspective in relationships, because this is a part 2, and I think it will take you far. There's much to learn. Stigmas are being broken. Yeah. There's hope. One of the men said they wanted to leave the listeners with, this is how you can consider developing a happy relationship and keeping a happy relationship. And it's not a one-way thing. It was wonderful.
Yeah, yes, it was. Again, you're tuned in to Women Emerge with Dr. Mellisa Lambert, H.C. And we have also Dr. Bertha White, H.C. out. She is a woman that really understands the concept of helping people outside the walls of therapy. And she is the founder, the visionary of Bertha Arise, and I'm so excited that we had an opportunity. I was there to moderate, and host with her panel session on this past Sunday, and we had such great conversation with these 4 speakers who are, a man and who took the perspective of what we were talking about, love, money, truth, and communication, and they gave us their perspective. And one of the things that I remember when we were talking about love, they mentioned that how they receive love is through respect. How they receive love is, Moses mentioned is through action. Right. And when Darrell came up again, he said the same thing. Respect, show me so I can feel that. So I can feel it works, and it helps build the trust factor. Someone else, which was, I believe, Dr. Anthony mentioned that be mindful how you love someone in the beginning, meaning you start that's where you're building it from, right? So if you start a relationship on such a high note where you're buying these expensive stuff, know that you have to maintain it that way. So I love how they spoke on that. So can you elaborate on how they shared on how a man, need to be loved?
That part right there. So what you covered was, yes, there was a consistent, I need to be respected. And there were other things. But when you add in how does that look? You can tell me what you need, but how do I do it? What is it that you need from me? That's an indication of these things. That's an indication of respect. And what was really brought to life is when men and women, are being raised in the environment for which they're being raised, it matters whether or not love was defined and shown, and in what way love was defined and shown as they were growing up. That impacted how they showed love as they are today. and that, sometimes there was not a male role model to show you how to do that. And so one of my questions was, well, when you don't have that, how do you learn to show love effectively and express what it is that you need effectively? And so back to communication and patience and trust and clarity. I may not be able to fully explain what it is that, I need, but as we move forward, you leave the door open to welcome, I like that or I don't. Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying? There is communication as you walk through that. And I think it was Moses that was very clear. He felt that love is an action. You show it. Well, yes, you sure do. But it's not just an action. It includes some feelings. And because of those feelings, you act. You see what I'm saying? And so it was important, I think Anthony said, to include that. You can't exclude that as a show of love. And he's right. Even if you Google the word love, you're going to see some actions and you're going to see some emotions. So that was a very clear point that I hope our listeners receive, because we talk so much about love language, but you got to understand it's mixed up a little bit.
It is.
Sometimes you got to, some things are important to some, and they are, attracted to someone that has that similarity. But therefore others, it's something else. It's emotional. It's those kind of things. So that part was quite interesting because so many people can relate to it. What they gave was such an overarching view with everything in there was great.
And I want to bring you back to a statement that Mr. Rodney made on that moment. And I want to say this entire conversation, these gentlemen felt so relaxed. I felt like they felt at peace. I felt that they had a feeling of a safe space because they were able to express, and I love that about this session that we had on Sunday. But one of the things that piqued my interest, as well as some of the other listeners that was on YouTube and also those who were on the Zoom, when Rodney said that, you guys have implemented a hug without any type of communication at all, just a hug. Can you elaborate on what was mentioned? Because that hug means so much. That hug can show love. That hug can show trust. That hug can show, that's my, you're communicating with me, but in a physical way. Can you elaborate on when he said that, how it, how does it impact a relationship when you pause and bring in just a gesture of just showing a affection through just hugging each other, embracing each other for a few minutes and without conversation?
Now, as I said earlier, Rodney is my husband, and we have these transparent type conversations with other couples. And that hug stemmed from our early relationship. Now, we've been married for 35 years, and that particular hug that he's referring to really started with us when we were about 17, maybe, something like that, that embrace, And sometimes it's difficult for couples to remember what it is that really keeps them connected. When we talk about connected, we mean intimate with each other and not in a sexual way. It's things like this hug. And so, throughout our marriage, we know the significance of that particular hug. Now, here's some self-disclosure. Originally, the hug took place on the bottom of a step. It was like he was standing on a landing, and I was standing on the bottom, the last step, and we gave each other a hug. I hope you can picture that. I'm honest. Okay. And that's where we were. And what we started doing is just hugging anywhere, anywhere. We didn't lose sight of doing that. But he was right. I think it was about a month, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago. We started regularly giving each other a hug, intentionally giving each other a hug, because it doesn't matter who you are, that type of embrace transfers energy, it calms, it's safe, it's reconnecting, it's like a magnet, it just reaffirms us, and and so I encourage, and I have a clinical background, a clinical therapy background, and I encourage not just my clients, but family and, friends, anyone that's in a relationship or married, no matter how long, to embrace and don't forget the feeling of each other's touch in such a way. It's calming. It's a safe place. We need to do more of that as we communicate a show of affection. That brings us back to Moses, and love is, tangible. This type of love is shown through a hug. So
I love that.
That was,
I love that, and I love the fact that you did a 2-minute hug. He said, and even I think it was, I can't remember. We keep on saying Moses because Moses really did have a lot to say, and we love the fact that he was very expressive with his conversation. And I think he said, I think it was him or Dr. Anthony when they said, even if it's to touch me on the back of my neck or my head, something, that form of touch.
That was Anthony. That was
Anthony.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that is just something to just be able to say, okay, baby, I'm here, or baby, you don't have to say, baby, I'm here, but just the sense of touch, just a sense of a hug, just the handheld, or, just rubbing the back, something, because the pressure of life, especially, not just throw race out there, Dr. Bertha, but for a Black man, in this society that, beats them down in so many ways, to come home, not to an argumentative wife, to come home, not to a nagging wife. And I don't mean to call anybody out in any way, but I'm just saying, you find that, they just want to feel appreciated in their own domain, in their own temple, in their own home. And for them, just a hug, a touch is what they need.
I think that's so relevant. Number one, I can identify with what they said. I can identify as a woman, and we have to reflect on this. Now, when they say, I don't want to come home to a woman that's nagging and this is the problem and, complaining and all of that kind of stuff, I think it's more of, we have to be mindful of how we receive each other. Pausing to give me a hug, to reassure me, and so on and so forth, is important in preparation for talking about the difficult stuff that you got to say. You know what I mean? Just prioritizing how the order of things. And I wanted to touch on, you said that, the touch. Back to the touch. When Anthony said the touch on the back of my head, I knew what he was talking about. You knew what he was talking about. All of the panelists felt that touch on the back of the head. How significant is it to, and that's why I chose these men, to be able to reveal themselves, but understand so many people experience what I experience. Why aren't we talking about it? Why aren't you saying these things to your partner? And not only appreciation of what they did, but you're clearly saying, this is how I receive love. Why not do that? Yes, yes. And so all kinds of examples were given in terms of how men need to be shown love. And Darrell was, he was very strong on communication. He was very strong on communication being a base for showing love, being honest, coming with some integrity, and being persistent and working towards a common goal. Those are the things that so many of us have to consider as being important and a show of love. And so, I mean, they touched it. They really nailed it. And it was it was far reaching, and everybody could relate. And as we move forward, and as our listeners pass on this information, and folks listen to it and they leave comments, I'm hopeful that we'll find other ways to add to this equation that's healthy.
And even like, again, like you said, this is a conversation that has to start we're supposed to start having, because again, we hide behind the pain, we hide behind the suffering, we hide behind the fact that I don't want my business to be out there, but not understanding your same business is somebody else's pain. Your same business is somebody else's struggle, and you talking about it can help that man, help that woman to see something different in themselves, and to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to add me a 2-minute hug every week in my marriage, right? I'm going to start doing that, and that's what one person stated when they were commented on the video. I want to start that in my home, and that's the problem. We're not talking about it so we can help each other, understand how we can add something new to our relationship. So when we talked about money, I love the questions that we had asked these gentlemen, because I love their response. How men view their role financially, the pressure men feel with money, how to reset when finance goes wrong. And one of them said, I can't remember who, but they said, someone says it takes two. And then somebody else said the money is the reward for the work. Can you elaborate on how how these gentlemen' perspective was when it comes to money?
It was, again, similar yet different. We talked to Moses about this particular question, and he revealed that in his marriage, this is seen like a contract in a big way. He explained that sometimes couples go into relationships at different levels of understanding when we're talking about the financial picture, which is so true. Some of us just didn't have that foundation, so it's so true. But he explained that he is a proponent of earning the money, saving the money, investing the money, moving the money forward to your future. And in his relationship, all the way down to the children, that was a focal point, and it was, I can't remember who it was. It could have been either Rodney or Anthony that said, when I make the money or you make the money, but primarily when the man makes the money and, you're spending frivolously and stuff, that's our money that you're spending frivolously on. We have to understand together what it is that we're doing with our money and make sacrifices to, move forward with our money. And, Rodney brought in terms of money, he shared that period in his transition between the military and, civilian life, where he lost his job. And how important, he knows that factor is, the money factor is, because he's been, a provider. And to take that away for one day or 6 months or what have you, it impacts men differently and specifically, But all said that we have to recognize, too, while men have this perspective of money and earning money and what should be done with it, there might be times when you have to depend on your wife, your mate, and it's okay. Let that happen. You can feel the way that you feel, and by all means, be looking for another job if that's your situation. But it is okay to let your mate help you. And your mate, your wife, is supposed to understand how this must make you feel, because you have actually been the provider. That moves things along more quickly. But then we were talking about at some point when you have to reset the finances, when there is a real problem with that understanding that I just spoke about. And there were, again, some hard truths. If you mess up, we messed up. Your credit score is our credit score, and I think it was Anthony and Rodney and I did the same thing, and that is, and so did Moses, we have to look at this together. And that is a difficult task for the partner that frivolously spends because you feel guilty.
Yeah.
And you don't want, and you don't want this scene. You got to deal with yourself. If we work together to look at our finances, my partner is going to know what I'm doing. And that's okay.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's okay. What it's supposed to be. That's why I liked when they said it takes two. Back in the days, my dad and my parents' days, my dad is the sole provider, right? And like in this society we're living in right now, it's challenging. Even with me as a single mom, I'm carrying a burden of not just one, I'm carrying a burden of what people are doing for two income. I'm doing it by myself, right? So I know how challenging it is, just me by myself. So I say to people, yes, if you're in a relationship, yes, we're not saying husbands don't do what you're supposed to do. We're saying work together as one unit.
That's right.
Let's open up the conversation about let's make sure our finances right. Make sure we have our investment. Make sure we're planning for retirement. So when we get to a certain age, we're not working. We're just enjoying life. What does that look like? Those are the conversation I feel like it's missing from relationship, and we just go into these relationships and we stay into these relationships, not asking the question, not saying the question, not putting together a game plan, not putting an action in place to make sure finance is not a problem, but it's a solution to a greater cause, which is making sure we're all happy at the end of the day, right?
Right, and we want to include, it may not look like husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend both working. One could be home caring for the children. One could be home, there's one that's going out and earning the dollar, but then there's the other that's home maintaining home. That is a job all by itself. And so as long as there is agreement that things will be done this way and consistency that things are done this way, that's progress financially. That makes it makes a clear picture of the work and the benefit of the work. rather it's a
Mm-hmm.
paycheck or, progression at home.
Yes, I agree 110%. Well, again, you're tuned into Woman Emerge with Dr. Mellisa Lambert, H.C., and we have our great special guest. She's always here every fourth Wednesday or Thursday, and today's Thursday, so she's here, and we're having that dialogue. We're talking about a conversation where we are unpacking the wisdom that was shared by Rodney White, Darrell Dandridge, Moses Jones Lewis, and Dr. Anthony Jones. We have explored what their thoughts were, what their how they view love, how they view the pressure of money and the importance of truth and the power of communication. So thank you so much again, Dr. Bertha White, for just hosting this amazing panel discussion, love, money, truth, and communication from the man's perspective in relationships. I think it's necessary, it's needed, and Bertha arise for this occasion to give us this panel. So now knowing what we just talked about with these gentlemen, and we close it out with like 3 scenarios, and I love the scenarios that we gave them. The finance collapse, it's when things goes wrong, finance collapse, and intimacy suffers. Hidden debt comes to light, and constant argument and misunderstanding. Can you just kind of give us a summary how they wrapped up this scenario when it goes wrong?
Well, for scenario 1, when we talk about finances collapsing and intimacy suffering, we know what that really looks like, and it is the truth. When there is a problem, most of the time women, but a lot of the time men, and these panelists were saying men too, when there is a problem, our intimacy suffers. I mean, I'm having these thoughts about our finances falling apart. I don't want to touch you. I need some distance from you, kind of thing. One really does affect the other, but it shouldn't be used as a weapon. Do you understand what I'm saying? It shouldn't be used as a weapon. You're holding out intimacy until I get what I want. That's intimacy being used as a weapon. But, it is real. And if there's conversation when finances collapse and there is truth, then you're able to talk about the problem of the finances. That communication clarifies and softens things so that there is no, intimacy suffering. When there is a collapse in finances and you're figuring things out, you want to end with a hug, everything is going to be okay. Intimacy doesn't suffer. You see what I mean? So that was, very clear in scenario 1 from everyone, myself and you included. And then we talked about hidden debt coming to life, and that just brings me back to what Anthony said. I think it was Anthony, your debt is my debt. And Moses the same, your debt is my debt. So let's educate ourselves on, on managing our money so that we're financially intelligent and financially solvent. That was really important to make. And we talked about too, and I just thought about this, at the beginning of a relationship, when you're developing the relationship and determining how far the relationship should go, when do you identify a credit score? I mean, what are these things that you should be looking at as you start to develop a relationship? And Anthony was saying, there are signs, and he's right about that. There are signs of a frivolous spender before you even expose what's going on in your bank account and so on and so forth. And we're talking about the dating stage. This is how you know whether you should be exploring money management or, how far it should go. And that was an excellent point. But even if you miss the signs at the beginning, there are still the same signs in the middle and right now, frivolous spending. And it might be time to just, confront that when you notice that there is a problem. And then on the other side, if your partner or your husband or boyfriend is confronting that, now is the time for you to acknowledge, yes, you do overspend. And now is the time for you to leave yourself open to financial education and understand your spending affects the entire household. It's supposed to be reciprocal. It's supposed to benefit each other both ways. Do you know what I'm saying? So that was a key factor that came out in scenario 2. And for scenario 3, where there is constant arguments and miscommunication, again, you have to consider, well, first of all, if there are reasons for these arguments. Infidelity, as an example. If there are, reasons in a relationship, there are factors in a relationship that were so impactful that you just couldn't move forward from some of it. And arguments might come from that, might stem from that. But removing, things like that, just picking an argument for the sake of arguing. I wonder if, let me move so there's that part, and the misunderstanding. Sometimes, I think it was Anthony that gave the example of one thing happening without that person knowing the full story. They have a partner knows half of the story and is basing their thoughts and their feelings on the half of the story that they know. But when you get the full story, clarify, allowing things to be clarified. But we have to remember too, and I hope I made this point clear, when we are communicating something that causes us to become aggressive, and our energy is high, the other person giving the second half of the story, sometimes you got to understand that the energy is high because of only this part of the story. And you don't want to get your energy high because wait a minute, this person, you're wrong. It didn't, wait a minute, you forgot about this part. And so there's no reason for partner number 2 to rev up as well, is what I'm saying. But, to limit the misunderstanding, be open to the second half of the situation. It's okay to say part 1, but there is a part 2. Consider the whole thing, and then don't hold on to it. Now, if these were problems that were evident at the beginning of a relationship and continued to the middle or so of the relationship, then this can be a deal breaker because there's always a problem with you. Do you know what I mean? It could be a deal breaker. And so you determine, and I would suggest early in a relationship, if, you're at the point of seeking professional support to help the both of you see where this type of behavior is leading you, and whether or not there's a way that you can improve it. You can always do that, but don't ignore these red signs. Some of these things you just can't fix and you just can't get beyond because you have no control of the other person. So when we talk about consistently arguing and that being misunderstood, there may be an underlying issue to deal with.
Yeah. Yes. And even in that sense, how do they practice, or what kind of tools can you say will help with that healthier communication when it comes to conflict?
Okay. So there are a few useful approaches when it comes to that. Number 1, I have my couples practice communication by allowing them to time themselves so that the other person knows, you're not going to just be going on and on and on and on, and I can't break in and say something. number one. But while the person is speaking, the other, just write down your questions if you're going to remember what you need to say. But the whole piece is when there is a breakdown in communication, you pause not to rev yourself up, but to calm yourself down and review the entire story. Do that. Then when you come together, and you must come together, don't wait all day. I think one of the panelists suggested 3 days. That's too long to sit in your feelings and fester, because that's and ruminate. That's exactly what would happen. Give yourself, we say 24 hours, no more than 24 hours. When you come back, one is talking, the other is talking with some clarity and, consideration for each other. We practice that in sessions, and I use a spoon. I use anything to represent talk. And they practice in my office and at home. So any of the couples that are listening here can try some of these things. It's practical. Practice speaking. Practice timing. Practice being in a safe place, the garage or something, so the kids aren't hearing you. Understand your volume. Be open. Validate each other's feelings. Listen to the second half and the third half of the story. Recognize when you misunderstood and say, you're sorry, I misunderstood. Sometimes you can't hold on to, but the way that I took it was, do you know what I'm saying, Miss Mellisa?
Yes, I do.
Okay, we can't hold on to that. We have to be open to, understanding the whole story. So, just practice talk.
Yes.
And as you're talking, add in there how you feel. How you feel. Because shutdown, although it is very passive-aggressive, is not an answer, and it's really not an expression of what you're thinking or what you're feeling. It just looks like, you leave me to my own devices. Are you frustrated? Are you mad? Yeah. So that piece was quite relevant too. So, I am so excited for a part 3.
Yeah.
What we need again, is the comments. What else do people, men and women out there want to focus on? And there are so many aspects to consider. If we did a part 3 and continue with these pillars, there's still more to say.
Yes, it is. There's still more to say.
And more from us. Yes, there's more to say. And so, I am excited.
I'm excited for us to definitely be here today. So thank you again so much for tuning in to Women Emerge with Dr. Mellisa Lambert. We had a special guest with Dr. Bertha White from Bertha Arise, and we're so excited that you were able to join us. Again, everyone, please continue to tune in to WomenEmergeRadio.com every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can follow us on WomenEmergeRadio.com. You can also follow on Facebook, Mellisa S. Lambert. Also with Bertha, you can Bertha Arise or Agent of Change, both on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you again. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can watch the entire replay on YouTube at Women Emerge Network. Women Emerge Network. Until next time, everyone. Thank you so much again, Dr. Bertha White, H.C., who has graced us today with this information. And we truly believe that something great was going to come out of this type of opportunity to really impact not only just the husbands, but also the wives. Tune in to many, many more great things to come from Bertha Arise. Until next time, everyone, please take care, take charge, and continue to be great. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Women Emerge with Mellisa Lambert, where Mellisa speaks with leaders, experts, and motivators who share their journeys and their stories through personal and professional growth, knowledgeable tips, and lessons learned that will empower you to grow. Follow Mellisa and Women Emerge Network on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at MELLISA SLAMBERT and at Women Emerge Network. And visit www.womenemergenetwork.com. Remember, when you know better, you can do better, especially when God is for you.